At the beginning of the story, a man is waiting for a ride from his new partner, Aldandria. They head to a marina near Washington, D.C. to meet with a counterfeiter named Mendoza. Frank and Al are pretending to be buyers of fake money. Mendoza invites Al to get on his yacht. Once Al steps away, Mendoza tells Frank that he has doubts about Al and has discovered that Al is actually a Secret Service agent. When Frank gets on the boat, he finds that Mendoza's henchmen have tied and gagged Al. Mendoza orders Frank to shoot Al as a loyalty test. As Frank approaches, he picks up Mendoza's gun, aims it at Al's head, and pulls the trigger. The gun clicks empty, and one of the thugs puts a plastic bag over Al's head. Frank demands his gun back, identifies himself as an agent, and shoots both of Mendoza's henchmen. Mendoza attempts to shoot Frank, but his gun malfunctions, leading to his capture. Later, Frank confesses to Al that the gun might have had a bullet in the chamber, which visibly disturbs Al. A few days afterwards, Frank looks into a report from an older landlady who claims her tenant, Joseph McCrawley, has been behaving strangely. Upon entering McCrawley's apartment, Frank discovers items related to various presidential assassinations, particularly that of John F. Kennedy. Frank was an agent for Kennedy during his assassination in Dallas in 1963 and still feels regret for not preventing it. Further inspection of the apartment shows that McCrawley is a talented machinist who constructs model racing cars. What Frank fails to notice is that McCrawley, whose actual name is Mitch Leary, is watching him from across the street through binoculars. They soon find out that McCrawley is using a fake identity since the real Joseph McCrawley passed away long ago. Al and Frank come back to their apartment to discover it's been cleaned out, and the tribute to past presidents is missing as well. The only thing left is a photo of a younger Frank on Kennedy's security team, with his face highlighted in red. That evening, Frank gets a call from Leary, who asks Frank to refer to him as Booth, named after Lincoln's assassin, claiming Booth had more style and flair, pointing out Booth's dramatic leap at Ford Theater when he shot Lincoln. Leary reveals his intention to kill the current president and expresses hope that Frank will be involved in the case. Leary seems to admire Frank greatly. While on the call, Frank hears a fire truck passing by Leary's place. Suddenly, he hears that same truck speed by his own apartment through the phone. He rushes to a nearby payphone, only to find the receiver left off the hook, indicating Leary has already left. Frank meets with Sam Campagna, the director of the Secret Service, to express his concerns that Booth poses a serious threat. He secures permission to keep investigating with Al and requests his phone be tapped. Frank has a strained relationship with a younger assistant director, Bill Watts, who views Frank as washed up. During the meeting, Frank also meets a female agent named Lily Raines, who appears intrigued by him but seems to see past his tough facade. Later, Frank shares a drink with Sam and asks to join the protective team for the current president. Sam implies he might be too old for the assignment, but still agrees to participate. Leary contacts Frank again, continuing to use the Booth identity, claiming he observed Frank that day as he ran next to the current president's limousine, managing the crowd. He elaborates extensively on Frank's life after the Kennedy assassination, mentioning Frank's struggle with alcoholism and the collapse of his marriage. Frank consults the men monitoring his phone and learns they have tracked Leary's location. However, when police raid the house, they discover that Leary used a signal jammer, redirecting the call to a civilian residence in nearby Virginia. Later, Frank takes Lily out for ice cream at the Lincoln Memorial. While he is charming, he expresses to Lily his belief that female agents are in the service mainly to attract the female vote for the president. Shortly after, Frank thinks Lily may have developed a crush on him due to a small action as she departs. Meanwhile, Leary alters his facial appearance and travels to Los Angeles. Under the alias James Carney, he visits a downtown bank to set up a new account for a fake software company where he claims to be the affluent CEO. During his conversation with the account manager, Pam Magnus, he casually mentions being from Minneapolis, which coincidentally is her hometown. Although he is friendly, Leary worries she could hinder his plans and that he might have made a significant enough impression for her to remember him. Consequently, he follows her home, deceives her into allowing him inside, and then murders both her and her roommate by breaking their necks. Leary returns to Washington and contacts Frank again. Frank becomes enraged when Leary insinuates that Kennedy suspected he would be assassinated and possibly desire death. Everyone rushes to the park, looking around for their target. Frank sees a long-haired man who has a hippie vibe and instantly recognizes him as Booth. He takes off after him, but quickly gets out of breath. Leary causes a slight car crash and gets hit by another vehicle. As he falls onto the hood, he touches the windshield. He then hides behind a bus and escapes. Frank immediately requests the car be seized so they can collect fingerprints. When the FBI analyzes the prints, they find out they belong to a former government agent. This information is kept secret from both Frank and Al. Frank assigns Al to continue the investigation while he focuses on security in the Midwest and Western U.S. At one location, Frank is outside in heavy rain and cold, leading him to catch a minor illness. Leary attends an indoor rally in Chicago, where he uses a pin to pop several balloons. Frank, who is feeling unwell and feverish, mistakes the noise for gunshots. He shouts for the security team to escort the president out, creating a small panic. However, the president continues his speech. Frank then faces criticism from the combative White House Chief of Staff, Harry Sargent, who seems more worried about the upcoming election than ensuring the president's safety. Frank goes back to his home in D.C. to recuperate from his sickness. Al arrives and informs Frank that he has linked Booth to Frank's model car hobby. They head to Pasadena, California, to follow this clue. There, they speak with a design engineering professor who recalls meeting another model car designer a year prior. This designer was friendly at first, but became upset when politics came up. The professor recommends that they reach out to a man named Walter Wickland in Phoenix. When shown a sketch, Wickland recognizes Leary, whom he hasn't encountered in over a year. Wickland explains that Leary severely attacked him for supposedly stealing one of his designs, resulting in Wickland's paralysis and reliance on a wheelchair. He carries a gun for protection, fearing Leary might return. Frank and Al go to Leary's home and break in, unintentionally crossing paths with CIA agents David Coppinger and another agent who are after Leary due to fingerprints found by Frank. A background check reveals that Leary was a previous CIA contractor trained in covert operations. However, due to poor psychological evaluations and budget cuts, he was let go, which he took as a personal affront, struggling to adapt to civilian life afterward. For example, when a friend visited him in Phoenix to urge him to seek help, Leary killed him by slitting his throat. Meanwhile, Leary goes to a pond to test a homemade gun made from plastic. While he's shooting, two hunters come across him. He allows them to try his pistol, and when one expresses interest in buying it, Leary claims he needs it to assassinate the president. At first, the hunters think he's joking, but soon realize he's serious. Leary then coldly kills both hunters before leaving. Later, Al drives Frank home one night, appearing visibly upset. He shares with Frank that he frequently has nightmares about the boat incident and the plastic bag being put over his head. He believes that transferring away from Frank's team would be a better choice. Frank urges Al to be stronger and reiterates that he needs his assistance with the investigation. Al agrees, but shows clear signs of trauma. When Leary calls again, Frank confronts him, stating that he knows who he is and that he's getting closer. Frank mocks Leary, revealing that he is aware Leary killed his own friend. Leary argues that the CIA didn't just dismiss him, they sent his friend to take him out. They turned him into a psychotic killer, and now they want him dead to prevent monsters from roaming the countryside. The tracking specialists finally locate Leary in an apartment in Northeast DC. As Frank and Al arrive, the authorities take action, but Leary has already escaped before they can breach the location. Frank and Al spot him and give chase across several rooftops, but Al falls behind. Leary makes a significant leap from one building to another. When Frank attempts to follow, he misses the ledge and is left hanging over an alley. Leary appears above him, offering his hand or threatening him to fall. While Frank clings on, he draws his gun and aims it at Leary. Leary taunts him, suggesting he can shoot him to save the president, which would result in his own fall, or let Leary save him. Just then, Al arrives, wanting to shoot. Frank keeps his gun pointed at Leary, seemingly determined to shoot. Leary bites down on Frank's gun muzzle and then pushes him to safety onto a fire escape. Al shouts for Leary to stop and manages to hold him for a moment, but he becomes distracted, allowing Leary to shoot Al fatally. A search in Leary's apartment uncovers a small piece of paper featuring the name S.W. Kellum L.A. This leads to a frustrating dead end, as no one with that name exists in either Los Angeles or Louisiana. Later, Frank takes a bus home, appearing very upset. While at a bar, he receives another call from Leary, who provocatively claims he killed Al in self-defense. Frank hangs up, threatening to disrespect Leary's grave once he catches and kills him. Meanwhile, Leary is altering his appearance yet again. Sam tries to persuade Sargent to cancel the president's forthcoming visit to Los Angeles. Sargent declines, explaining that the president cannot risk losing votes from California, but reluctantly agrees to enhance security measures. As they prepare for the dinner party at the Westin Bonaventure Hotel, Frank mistakenly identifies an innocent bellboy as a security risk and confronts him aggressively in front of journalists. This incident becomes the final straw for Sargent, leading Lily to remove Frank from the security detail. Leary, now back to using the name James Carney, meets with Sanford Riggs, the man overseeing the dinner ceremony, with whom he has spoken before. Riggs provides him tickets for the event. Riggs and Leary are in a hotel having a conversation when Frank calls Riggs over to look at some pictures, while Leary remains calm. Lily discusses Frank's fixation on Leary, reassuring him that he's not the only one with such feelings and should lean on his colleagues more. He shares his regret about failing to protect JFK and the emotions that arose from it. Lily takes his hand as they gaze out at the Los Angeles skyline. Frank then speaks with another agent, who provides him with a phone number that he humorously associates with ukulele. Upon dialing, Frank realizes it's remarkably similar to S.W. Kellum's information. He connects the call and reaches Southwest Savings and Loan, the bank where Leary established his Carney ID. At the bank, he learns about the murder of an account specialist. The employees attempt to identify the new accounts she was handling just before her death, and Frank requests them to send him a list of names via fax. Meanwhile, Leary walks into the dining area. The metal detector fails to detect his pistol components, as the bullets are cleverly concealed in his rabbit's foot keychain, which is passed back to him around the detector. As the president enters, Leary quietly constructs his plastic gun under the table while casually chatting with the woman beside him. Frank is hurrying to the hotel in a taxi. Upon his arrival, a fax with the bank's list of new accounts is waiting for him. He cross-references the names with a contributor list and identifies James Carney. As Watts confronts him, Frank accesses a seating chart to locate Leary and races toward him just as Leary lifts his gun to target the president, arriving just in time to take the bullet himself. Pandemonium breaks out after the president vanishes as Leary seizes a gun from a nearby agent and takes Frank hostage, dragging him into a glass lift. Frank is found to be wearing a bulletproof vest. He realizes that the microphone in his collar is still linked to Lily's channel. Leary aims his gun at Frank, exclaiming he won't be captured, but will take Frank with him. Frank urges him to pull the trigger and finish it, leading Lily to accurately interpret this as guidance for her. Leary, believing Frank is addressing him, insists that Frank should recognize he's given him newfound purpose. When Frank tells him to aim high, Leary finally understands and ducks just as the snipers shatter the elevator windows. Frank and Leary engage in a struggle, while snipers can't get a clear shot at either. Eventually, Leary loses his grip and finds himself hanging from the railing, with Frank offering assistance. Leary declines and falls several stories to his demise. Now celebrated as a hero, Frank announces at the airport that he is retiring from the Secret Service. He's too old to be chasing limousines and cannot go undercover, especially since his face is all over the news. Frank and Lily head back to his apartment in D.C., where they find a message from Leary on his answering machine. They choose to ignore it and enjoy a peaceful moment at the reflecting pool of the Lincoln Memorial. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.